Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 234.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers who are looking to shoot lower scores. Dedicated to professional club fitting, putting and short game improvement, and effective practice techniques to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, putting and short game improvement, and effective practice techniques, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. After my last podcast episode with good friend Jeff Sheets, I was intrigued with the possibility of talking with Dean Knuth, who is recognized as the world's expert on golf course handicapping and course rating, the system used in the United States and in many foreign countries. I was excited that Dean agreed to do this new interview with me, and I think you enjoy learning about how he became recognized as the Pope of Slope, and the story about how he created the USGA slope rating system. Enjoy this interview with Dean Knuth.
Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 234 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. Today's going to be a really fun one with the Pope of the Slope, Dean Knuth. Dean was and is recognized as the world's top expert on the golf handicapping and course rating system used in the United States and many foreign countries. He was the USGA Senior Director of Handicapping, GHIN, and Green Section Administration from 1981 through 1997, and I think he continued as an advisor for a little while after that. And I found out, you and I met maybe 10 years ago at the PGA show and some other things, but, I found out about this through Jeff Sheets, who I know is a great friend of yours. And so just a little shout out to him for for connecting about this. So thanks, Dean. Well, let's start with a little history, how you started working with the USGA and brief interview of the things you were most involved with. And as I know, you really like to talk about how you got the name, the Pope of the Slope.
Well, I was in the U.S. Navy. I went to the U.S. Naval Academy, and then I served in Vietnam at a couple of Navy ships. And then after that was over, my detailer, by then I was a lieutenant in the Navy, and my detailer said, "What would you like to do next?" And I said, "Well, what I'd really like to do is go to the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California." And they actually put me into the program, anti-submarine warfare, to get a master's in systems engineering. So I attended that for 2.5 years. And one of the courses that I had early on was called a design of experiments. You had to collect data, and most of the students in the class collected some kind of data to do with the U.S. Navy, whatever they were, a pilot or whatever they did. And being a golfer, I asked the Northern California Golf Association, which is right there by Monterey and Pebble Beach, and if there was anything that needed to be analyzed and improved, and they immediately said, "Yeah, the USGA's course rating system doesn't work. It's just based on yardage." And so I asked the professor. He says, "Yeah, that's fine. Unusual, but that's fine." And so I collected thousands of golf shots assisted on these courses by the USGA, and had to write Fortran 4 program, which doesn't even exist anymore, and I had to do punch cards, which don't even exist anymore.
Oh, I miss those. Haha.
And so anyway, I ran the data through, and through a nonlinear regression, and I found that there were 10 important obstacle factors that affected score almost as much as the length of the holes. Um, Things like fairways and recoverability in rough and out of bounds and trees and water and bunkers. Green as a target, green as a surface, even a psychological factor. And it came back with a weighted way to optimize the evaluation, and that is uh, to take the obstacle ratings on each of these factors on each golf hole and produce an obstacle stroke value and what would be the effect of obstacles converted into strokes in addition to yardage in this. What I did, I turned in my report. The Northern Cal Golf Association asked me to do some more after I was moved on to other classwork. And they sent a letter to the U.S. Golf Association and said, hey, we're going to adopt the system since you don't have one. And we're gonna adopt a Knuth course rating system to rate courses. And then that got the USGA's attention, and then pretty soon I was hearing from them, and then I became a committee man for the USGA, and then a consultant, and then eventually a full-time employee when I left the U.S. Navy.
And so, we're going to dive in a little more, but the sort of name, the Pope of the Slope that everybody calls you, or before we go into all the details of that, kind of how did that happen?
Well, I had been teaching course rating into all the golf associations around America, but I had been requested by the Argentina Golf Federation to fly down to Buenos Aires and do a seminar for South America. And they were the host, and they had translators who took turns translating what I said to a large group of people from most of the countries in South America that had golf. And so I was introduced by the executive director of the Argentine Golf Federation, and I was introduced to the group, and I listened to what he said in the beginning. And he said, I'm Dean Knuth from the United States Golf Association, and he is the Pope of the Slope.
Oh, wow.
And I came back after that seminar, and it was an all-day thing because they had to translate everything I said. I had to wait. And then we went to a golf course, and the translator had a megaphone and repeated to all the people out on the golf course what I was saying. And then I got back, and Jay Mottola was the longtime executive director of the Metropolitan New York Golf Association. And I was giving a speech there to a group that he was hosting. And I had told him this story. I says, hey, Jay, I just got back from Argentina, and I'm supposedly on the Coppice Slope. And he laughed, and he then introduced me to the crowd. He says, I'm pleased to introduce Dean Knuth, the Pope of Slope. And it's been that way ever since.
Well, that is fabulous. What a great story. I bet a lot of people really don't know that, so that's neat. So, I mean, you have a long history with creating handicap index elements of it and a slope rating. Talk a little bit first about what handicap index is and how it's determined.
Well, it used to be that you just had a whole number they call the USGA handicap. But when I rated golf courses for both the scratch golfer, which is the course rating, and rated courses for the bogey golfer, which is the bogey rating, bogey course rating, If you plotted score versus handicap on a chart, how fast the scores go up as the handicap goes up at an individual golf course, that would give you a line that goes up at different rates. Like Pine Valley would be a very steep line, and that would be the slope rating of the golf course. So the way that we implemented the system was to, instead of having just a handicap, a whole number, we converted to a handicap index after making corrections to it for course rating and slope rating. And then that would then develop a digital number, 10.2, for example. And when you went to play a golf course based on its slope rating, then that would convert into a whole number that you would play with, which is called your course handicap. So that's why it's a digital handicap index.
Now, I guess before, and I dove into this a little bit trying to understand things, and somehow I thought slope was about like and I'll bet a lot of people think this, right? It's related to sort of, is it uphill, is it downhill, da-da-da-da-da-da. But I never had that appreciation. So when you can connect that, the kind of course rating or the basic handicap index is for a scratch golfer, right? And then to the bogey rating, which I had never heard about, then I think what you're telling me, each course has a unique slope itself, right? Related to that.
Correct. The course rating and the slope rating. And that's with those two numbers, which every golf course in the world now has, you can convert that into a course handicap, how many strokes that you get when you play there.
So, for fun, bogey rating, again, go through that definition just so people are like really clear about what that is. Because again, that's that was a term I never heard before.
Yeah. So the bogey golfer it's somebody who is like a 17.5 to a 20. And he has a lot of bogeys on golf halls. Some are double bogeys and maybe a couple of pars here and there. But it's a rating of what is a bogey golfer. There's a bogey rating for men and there's a bogey rating for women. And what is a bogey golfer expected to shoot on a golf course? And so now if you take the difference between the bogey course rating, the bogey rating, and the scratch rating, which is the scratch golfer, then that gives you a steepness of a line. It's like a graph. If you graph the line of how fast the scores go up. So again, a very high slope rated golf course, they go up to 155. That's the maximum allowed. And there are a few golf courses that have back tees that are up to 155 slope rating.
Maybe Oakmont.
No, I don't know if Oakmont does.
Yeah.
Say, set up for a U.S. Open. This past year, Oakmont probably was 155 the way, it played, especially on the last day.
Yeah.
With bad weather and rain and, really deep rough. Yeah, it probably was 155.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just approximately, the average slope rating in the country was supposed to be 113. That it approximately means that scores go up at the rate of 1.13 for every stroke increase in the handicap. It's not exactly that, but it's approximately. And so approximately, if the slope rating was 150, it's just approximately scores go up at the rate of 1.5 stroke for every stroke increase in the handicap. And so over the difference between a 10 and a 20 is being 10, but it's actually a difference in score of about 15 shots. And that's an approximation. That's not exactly, but if you ever looked at the World Handicap System definition, conversion, you'd go into you'd see the details, but
that's real deep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. Yeah, but it's all done for you by computer now. I mean, most people use their iPhone when they're playing a golf course, and the golf course has already, they already have saved what the course rating and the slope rating is, and it converts it into your course handicap for that day.
Now, as I hear you talk about this, I mean, was there any sort of one moment that you thought, oh, this would make sense?
Well, I was in the early days, when I first started on the USGA staff in 1981, there were a lot of naysayers and a lot of people saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it was broke because basically golfers from very difficult golf courses had a several stroke advantage over golfers for what I always call open flats.
Yeah.
Flat, wide open golf course. And they can compete against each other fairly. And so this was a conversion that, that was going to make it equitable for all golfers, no matter where they came from, where their home course was, or where they're going to play. And to me, it made all the sense in the world. But, there were some people saying, why are we doing this? This is a lot of work. Re-rate all the golf courses for both a scratch golfer and a bogey golfer. Why are we doing that? So, but it all happened, just over, I think that I started teaching the system and telling Golf Association about the system right away in 1981. And finally in 1987, the USGA put out to all golf associations is the required system. Every golf association has to do it. And by then, most of them had, but a few notable ones had not. And then after that, I started teaching it around the world and started in Canada and then went to a lot of different countries with a lot of really interesting stories.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet. Now, so, I mean, just for fun, let's take an example because I have a friend coming from Las Vegas in a couple of weeks, right? And he plays at a specific course, and that course has a handicap rating and a slope rating. And, if you can describe simply, how's he going to convert to that? And the gin thing will do it automatically, right? But how does that end up converting to that at my course?
So does he play at an easy course or a difficult?
I think he plays at a longer course than I typically play at, so it's probably a little harder that way. But I don't, I can look up his stuff on the phone, but
yeah, that's okay. It just the way it works is that when he posts a score, it's corrected his differential, which is the score minus course rating, but it's adjusted for the slope rating of where he played. And there's even added in a thing I didn't agree with is par is also taken into account. And that then takes that differential, which is adjusted, into become part of his last 20 scores. And the formula is the best 8 differentials are averaged, and that average becomes in a 1-digit number what his handicap index is. So, and then when he goes to play in your golf course, then the formula is kind of like reversed. So it converts that into wherever the course's slope rating that he's playing that day. And so it'll become a different number than what he is back at his home golf course.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's now that, we all think about how this is, boy, it just must have been havoc before that happened in terms of people. I mean, people probably were griping all over the place. How can this be fair, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't fair before it.
Yeah.
Or just basically, the golfers from the really difficult golf courses would pay to have a limousine bring you over to play them, so they could beat you.
and now you have a chance. That's great.
Right.
So it was roughly 6 years or so, though, then before it all started. And I'm sure, I think you said a little bit, there were, like anything new, lots of negative reactions, right? We got to do all these changes and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
But the whole thing that drives golf associations and tournaments are usually the volunteers. And there are people that volunteer to be walking scores in tournaments, or volunteers to, be a marshal or whatever. It's all volunteerism. That's what makes it. That's the engine that makes all this run. And so after I taught the golf associations how to rate the golf courses, it was the volunteers that went out and did all that work.
Yeah.
And they formed up into teams of 4, requires at least 4 course raters, and they have to discuss each hole after they've rated themselves, and they had to get agreement within one on each of the 10 obstacles, and then before they went on to the next hole. And so that's a lot of work. But thankfully, there's thousands of volunteers that think it's fun. They get to go out and do it.
Yeah. Now, so you said again the 10 obstacles. So the things that you developed right at the beginning, those 10 obstacles are still part of this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That
really changed.
Yeah. And that was, one of my almost near end questions, though. I mean, have there been any major changes on how slopes are being created since you first developed them?
Not really. No.
It's amazing.
It's all the same as the model that I developed in 1975.
Jeez.
And there's a few areas of definition. Like, I'll give you an example. There are lakes golf courses, built on former sand dunes throughout on the coastline of Scotland. I mean, that's Royal Dornoch Golf Club, and the old course of St. Andrews. They're links golf courses. They were all former sand dunes with all the mounding in it, but they typically don't have any trees on them, and but they do have gorse, which is a really prickly bush that you can't really go and retrieve your ball, even if you see it, because of the thorns that are all over the gorse bushes. And there's heather, and those obstacles had to be accounted for, because if it's missing some obstacles, but it has some really severe other obstacles, I had to develop refinements for those types of golf courses so that they were comparable to courses that had out of bounds and trees and so on and so forth. So those kind of modifications happen, but that's about it.
Now, I didn't put this into questions, but I'm sure you know how to answer it. New course gets built in my area. Roughly how long does it take for that to get really into the GIN system, the course rating system, the whole thing?
The new golf courses get rated more frequently than existing courses. So an existing course, unless there's significant changes made to it, they only have to be rated every 10 years. But a new golf course has to be rated every few years, like 3 years, until it gets to be 10 years old. So that's an example.
Yeah.
to because a course goes through a lot of changes when it's brand new.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it makes sense. Well, this has really been fascinating. I mean, it's fun to hear about all the intricacies of it. Any final insights for golfers about using the GIN handicap system or anything related to what we talked about? And, also, I didn't realize where you're living now. Too bad, right? Over in Scotland. Talk a little bit about that and things you're involved in.
Sure. Yeah, the World Handicap System went into effect 5 years ago, and the idea of the USGA is they have uh, uh, the same rules of golf worldwide with the Royal and Ancient Golf Club in St. Andrews, and which covers all other than North America, and so it's the idea was let's have the same handicap system worldwide. Well, unfortunately, they made some changes that I don't agree with, and I think that it dumbed down the USGA system from what we had before. For example, they brought in bringing par into the mix, and frankly, in handicapping, there's really no room for par. The Par is just a nebulous number. You can have a golf hole that's 250 yards, that's called a par four, and you could have another golf hole that's 470 yards, and it's called a par four. And so there's a huge variation in par. And so you've probably all seen, par 72 courses that can be extremely difficult and extremely easy. So I don't agree with bringing in par into the equation, but that was something that the World Handicap System did. And then the other thing that they brought in is something called a soft cap. And soft cap is if you play uh, uh, much worse than your handicap, then you get to a point where you can go up 3 shots in a year, but if you start going up more than 3 shots, the soft cap slows you down. And then another factor comes in at 5, declining by 5, that uh, that your handicap gets frozen for the rest of the year, for a calendar year anyway, at 5. And so I think it's inequitable, and I I strongly disagree with it, but that was what was implemented when the committees from all the different countries in the world all decided on a world handicap system. And I have found in my own research, since the soft cap and the hard cap have gone in, that it's been very unfair to senior golfers. There are a lot of senior golfers who should be, more than 3 shot higher handicap than what they are, but the soft cap and the hard capper is slowing them down or stopping them. So um, I there are some things that went in with the system that I disagree with, but I'm no longer involved. I'm retired. I could be considered elderly, although I still play golf a lot, and I always walk. So anyway, um, those are just my
Oh, sure.
views.
Yeah.
And about Scotland, well, my wife and I have been going to Scotland together for almost 30 years. And we love it so much that we bought a house in Dornoch, Scotland. And I'm a member of the RNA, the Royal and Ancient Golf Club, and in St. Andrews, and we always go down there and play. We just did last week. We went down and played the old course in St. Andrews, and we've had a pretty cold spring. We've been here now for 6 weeks, and very cold and windy. But today's a beautiful day, and it's the weather's improving. But the British government allows Americans, well, right now they do, um, to to spend 180 days in the country. And when you come into the country, it's an electronic system. It's called an ETA, and they've got your biometrics and all, and they know when you come into the country and when you leave.
Yeah.
And so any 180 days in the year, you can be there. And you don't have to pay taxes to them other than property taxes and the VAT, which is the value-added tax. So anyway, we're members at Royal Dornoch Golf Club also, and another club called Golfspeed, which is a James Braid course that was built over 100 years ago, and that's all close to Dornoch. And our house is in Dornoch, and we love it here.
Wow. Now, and I don't know, before we end, I don't know if you did a little research on my podcast stuff, but actually I've done 2 podcasts with people that are over in Scotland too. Kevin Davidson, Keith Muir. I don't know if you know either of those 2 people.
Yeah, you gave me their names. I hadn't met them. They're in St. Andrews someplace, right?
I think so. But I think Kevin might be at Dornish. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Okay.
But we talked about a book that he did. So
yeah, I'll have to look him up. Lorne Rubenstein is a famous writer, and he's the Golf Writers Association Hall of Fame and the Ontario Hall of Fame, maybe the Canadian Hall of Fame. But he's written a lot of books, including he wrote a book about his summer in Dornoch, and it's a wonderful book. He's such a great writer. But he's a member here. We'll be seeing him, I think, the end of September this year.
well, life is good, right? Well, we'll end it for now. I will put the link to your extensive bio in the show notes. And there's a lot of really interesting history in there, too, that you put in there, and people that want to dive into this a little more. But, thank you so much for doing this today. It's just a topic I think a lot of people will get a lot of fun learning about and listening to, and have a greater appreciation for the impact that you had on golf, have had on golf.
Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time.
Dean, thanks so much for sharing all that you did to help the USGA and golfers around the world to use the effective USGA course rating system. I was most fascinated to find that the system used today and created by you had its origins when you took a course in experimental design almost 50 years ago. The system you created then from a project from this course has stood the test of time, and we're all benefiting and grateful. I put a link in the show notes to Dean's extensive bio page, where you can read more about Dean, but also a lot of interesting history about the USGA handicapping system throughout the years. Thanks for pulling all this information together in one place, Dean. My shout out today is about my personal efforts to get some driver distance back. About 4 years ago, I purchased the STACK Golf Swing Speed Improvement System, and in doing the foundation course, improved my driver distance potential from 201 to 232 yards. It worked. Well, we're now at now. And at least as of about a month ago, and 4 years later, my driver distance potential was 182 yards. And I thought it was time to get back to STACK. After 5 sessions of the starter 18-session program, my driver distance potential has already improved to more than 200 yards. And I see the potential, if I do the work, to get back to at least 210 to 220 yards. So thanks, Sasha McKenzie and STACK, also to my weight training program with John Paul Guidry, and to the Mach 3 training tools for helping me to see these exciting possibilities. I'm going to start something a little different related to sharing links to previously published podcast episodes on YouTube. In the website link for this podcast, you'll find the YouTube playlist for the 6 interviews I did with club design and professional club fitting expert Tom Wishon. These are among my favorite previously published interviews, and if you enjoy listening to any of them, please like them. Thanks. Well, that's it for today. I'll be back, I hope, in less than a month for another great podcast episode. But until then, take care. God bless and protect Ukraine. And God bless America. Bye for now.
Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. www.gameimprovementgolf.com